Disneyland song, and I was looking at this preview on a movie. I was looking at Tomorrowland, and then there's this part, because Tomorrowland is made by Disney, there's this part about the Disney Next Adventure. So I was looking at this, and then I found some geometry I thought I would show you. I'm having a hard time showing you the beginning of this because it won't let me scroll back to this. But anyway, it says in here, Disney's Next Adventure begins with you. So let me show you. So Disney's Next Adventure has this 618816 number that we've seen again and again. This is the Bride of Christ number, and it's also 5 forward at 1.618, which is P16, and R would be 1618 in the forward direction. So we've seen this 816 number, so we need to pay attention because here they're predicting the future, having to do basically with the Bride of Christ, I believe, because it says begins with you, so that involves you. Now this number here has to do with phi squared. This is also one number different within the Colel rule of the heading of ISIS in Washington, D.C. If you haven't seen my ISIS in Washington, D.C. videos, just because the Pope has come and gone and the sacrifices happen in Mecca instead of in Washington, D.C., doesn't mean we need to stop paying attention to Washington, D.C. So we need to keep our eyes open with the symbolism, because we notice that, you know, if you've seen my Reynolds video or any of my videos, the numbers, they're almost like those, I've never played these machines, these like jackpot machines where you press the lever and then all of the numbers, you know, then you try to match the symbols, or the machine matches the symbols, and if you match the symbols, you win. I think this is the idea that they have of how they, you know, create these events. The numbers and the symbols line up, and then the event lines up. I don't fully understand that. I'm just trying to back engineer the idea. Well, anyway, Disney's Next Adventure, long story short, or as short as possible, equals New World Order. And it equals it completely. And you know how I talk about, oh, actually, no, it doesn't equal it completely. It only equals it in the Jewish gematria. But here we have an elect number, of course, and just to remind you, and this is the July 4th. This is the Q combined with July 4th. So this is their idea of, I believe they're talking about an Anunnaki god when they talk about the god of the Old Testament. I believe that's an Anunnaki or Nephilim god, and I have a lot of reasons for thinking that, and I have a lot of videos about that. So before you yell at me, watch a lot of my videos, and then basically don't yell at me, because that's not nice. So this is a Q, and this is July 4th. July 4th doesn't have anything to do with independence. It has to do with the religion of the Illuminati, the Bavarian Illuminati, I think, to be precise. So Disney's Next Adventure equals New World Order. And there's really not a lot else that it equals that I can pick out here. But I don't know if we need anything else. Now, if you're interested in more Disney things, I found very, very interesting Nazca type drawings in the Paris Disney World. And Paris is Isis. She's, the Virgin Mary is a repackaged story given to you by the Vatican. I do believe there was a teacher of righteousness, Joshua, and probably his mother was probably a very good person. I'm gonna say she probably was. And she might also be, since he's the Christ, she would be the mother of Christ, so she would have this symbolism of the Queen of Heaven, Isis, Inanna, Ishtar, Diana, Artemis, the ancient Egyptian sky goddesses, Ma'at, Tefnut, all those guys, they were parthenogenic. So that's where the virgin word came from, because they were parthenogenic. They basically, that's their species. They are parthenogenic, and they do seem to be wise and helpful and benevolent. I'm still trying to figure out why Isis is drawn everywhere. I don't worship Isis. I study this because I would like to know what's going on. I don't know if you would like to know. If you would like to know, stick with me. We'll figure this out as we go along. I do not claim to know everything, and I do not require you to believe me. I don't use my porn voice or my scary music, and I don't tell you that I know for sure. We're just going along, and I'm showing you what I notice. And I've made quite a few discoveries and quite a few ties, so that's why it's interesting, because it seems like that the theories are progressing. All right, Disney's Next Adventure, here we go, begins with you. Begins with you, has the, again, the Q and the 77. This is the way. This number is the 216 number, but as you see the 106 right here, this is the number that was active all summer, and we thought, we didn't know what it was exactly. Then we thought maybe it's a date, and now we're back to we don't know what the 106 was. It might have been a date, or it could be anything. They use these as dates, they use these as anti-dates, they use these in gematria codes, they use these in meridians. So I think we need to leave this basically just as a standalone number symbol. But in the 216 aspect of it, the 2160 anagram of it, it is the diameter of time for the zodiac for a zodiac age. So begins with you equals Netanyahu, George Bush, the mark of the beast, the gematria secret. I'm trying to let you know the gematria secret as much as possible. Here is the gematria secret has this in the Jewish gematria. This is an anagram for the heading from the Capitol building to the Lincoln Memorial along the line on which ISIS is sitting in Washington, D.C. Please go see my video on that. Solomon Key, Holy Communion. Communion by the Catholic Church has to do with cannibalism. They used to eat their enemy to gain the strength from their enemies, and they used to also eat their elders to hopefully gain the wisdom of their elders. So that was an ancient practice that we don't need to do anymore. Pontius Pilate, it equals Prince William. This is the symbolism of this statement. Disney's next adventure begins with you. Prince of Darkness, pituitary gland, the great harvest. This is what makes me really nervous about all the Christians agreeing to this. It also equals the 4th of July, which is the God number, the G and the D of the 7 and the 4. So, you know, Joshua, even in the gospel, he does not say, you know, that you need to accept him into your heart and put him in the driver's seat of everything that you do. He does say, according to the edit, which may or may not be true, you know, because the Vatican Church wrote that, and it was edited by the Freemasons. Freemasonry and Catholic Church is not separate, even though they think it is. Freemasonry, the Vaticans, and the Jesuits are not separate. The Jesuits, the Vatican, and the Zionists are not separate. They're all the same. And I do believe there are some good Illuminati out there. There are some good Freemasons. I'm going to not go into the Vatican. I believe that once you've taken an oath, if you were a Zionist or a Jesuit, you have taken an oath and you are probably no longer good. Unless you are extremely undercover. There's probably undercover agents in there of, you know, good ones. Well, anyway, if you agree, if you do these dark rituals of the church, you are basically agreeing to the great harvest. Now, we have recently learned about why they're killing holistic doctors, having to do with the human protein, GCMAF, I believe is what it's called, and it's a natural human protein that they are killing. They're killing this protein very accurately with their vaccinations. And, of course, some people are hit harder by this than other people. Well, if we have a protein, so if you can get this medicine, if you can get this protein, say you're sick, say because like an autoimmune disease or immunodeficiency disease, basically every disease that man is suffering from can be traced to a virus, which can be traced to low immune response. And if you take this medicine, this protein that you should naturally have in your body, 80% of these people recover. Even an autistic child can recover. Well, think about what that means. Think about the people who are healthy in spite of having taken their vaccinations. Think about those people and what their DNA, those people are becoming a farm for GCMAF. Those are GCMAF farms, those people. So they are breeding a stock of GCMAF producers. And anybody who's sick is basically, you know, not invited to the next level of the stock breeding here. So why would that be useful? You could have a great harvest of this, and this is shown in Jupiter ascending. And I don't want to be too doomy, but I have to tell you, there are dark people out there. There are dark star people, there are good star people, and there are very dark star people, and I do believe they are harvesting humanity for various reasons, including our biological resources, and it looks like they might be breeding us to produce GCMAF. Well, if GCMAF is like a cure-all, and it targets basically every disease, and we are made in the image of the Nephilim, and we are a library for the Trinity of Sons, we are a DNA library, we could be being bred for this harvest, to harvest this medicine. And the reason why they would harvest you is because we are coming up to a climactic, a natural, possible climactic chaos predicted by the French Prime Minister and lots of other people. And basically all your resources, all your biological resources will go to waste. Now, I know you think, okay, well, we're all toxified. Well, I'm going to say they probably have the technology to pull the toxins out of you and then keep your proteins separate, which might be valuable. So I don't think that anybody should be agreeing to a harvest or agreeing to any of these dark doctrines that are in the church right now, where you basically make an oath. Joshua told you, I think, 3 different times, and his name is not Jesus, it's Joshua. And when you make an oath with Jesus, you have made a bad oath, and you could have just made an oath to the point where you agree to be harvested. So I think you should break all your oaths and don't go to church. Seek the true teacher and seek the kingdom of God within. That's what I think. You don't have to agree with me, but that's what connecting these dots. Harvest is a 6/6 word, and it's a word about food. It's a word about they're telling you straight up in your face that it's a commodity word. This is not a graduation word. Okay, apple of my eye. The apple of my eye. Now in the Bible it talks about that you are the apple of my eye. So we're still on begins with you. Disneyland's next adventure begins with you. You are the apple of my eye. This is written in code. This has to do with the toroidal shape cosmology of our world, and that it is eye-shaped. So you are the torus of the eye. I believe we live in a quantum random frequency generator that was created by a divine and loving God, and it all it seems like it's all gone very wrong. I don't think it has. I think that things are becoming very urgently bad to force us to graduate. We have become complacent. We've sought our little safe niche in this chaos, and here we are in the valley of death, and we found a little cave of peace, and we're like hiding in there. Well, I think that the things are getting a little bit crazier to force you to graduate this, what you could call it a maze, you could call it a lesson, you could call it like a school or a grail. And a skelly, whenever you see the skull, that is an idea of a school. So this could be the skull and bones. I'm not saying they're good. I'm just saying they teach a certain doctrine, and that would be a school. And this whole earth, this whole life could be a school to teach you to seek the kingdom within, don't trust the liars, and to also bring some authority to the vision and the love and the dream that you have within, because this is a quantum random frequency generator. You have the ability to say to the mountain, move. You have that ability, and the churches don't teach it. I wonder why. They don't ever talk about that. I'm amazed that they even have it in the Gospels. I do think there are true things in the Gospels. Somehow they have survived, either by threat or maybe there's a law that they have to put it in there. But for some reason, there's true things in the Bible and in the Gospels. And one of them is, you say to the mountain, move, and you will do these miracles and greater. Those things are true. Let me go back to this. Okay, so I think I've covered these two. All right, well, it won't let me go back. I wanted to show you some things in here, and it won't let me go back. So here we are. We have a D77. This is a 747, and I've seen a lot of these numbers in Tomorrowland, and I will bring those to you. Probably not right away, but anyway, so they've had a few screens here. They said one that Disney's Next Adventure, and another one that says begins with you, and another one that says now they only buy movies once. Let me show you what that. So anytime you're watching these things, you're going to realize that some of these, when they put these statements, like they stop the movie and they put it on a black screen with the script, and you're going to be like, why does this matter? Why would somebody buy movies more than once? And I guess I can see why you do that with mobile devices, but it's not really worth its own black screen. But really what's here is there's this number right here. It's a counting up number, a 1, 2, 3, 4. We saw in Oregon, we saw the counting up number. And counting down numbers are also important too. And this is an agent number, but this is also the reverse of the 7-4 of the God number down here. So there are codes in this, and it's too many words really to find something very important down here, especially in the English and simple geometry. But I did find something in the Jewish geometry that I was going to show you. I hope I can find it quickly. Oh, hold on. Alright, so fasten your seatbelts, I think is playing. This actually is in the simple and the English gematria. Fasten your seatbelts, I think, is a valid tie here. Return to the void. Probably some of these other things are less important, but hidden messages and numbers would for sure be valid here. Okay, so she says, how wonderful. Okay, so how wonderful equals the name of Christ, Harry Potter, the Alpha and Omega, Vitruvian Man, creator of the Bible, reptilian, whatever, Isis and Osiris. I think this, judging by how much time they take to draw these, Osiris would be drawn in the form of Orion, and Isis would be drawn in the form of a woman. Judging by how often they draw this, this might be the main thing here, especially because of what we know about Disney in Paris. And Paris does mean for Isis. So I want to point out that just because these guys worship gods that we are not taught to, they taught us to worship Yahweh, which is the Hebrew Anunnaki Nephilim god, and Jesus, which is basically the Greek form of Zeus, which is basically Marduk Ra, which is basically Enki's son Marduk Ra, or Amun Ra. So those are the gods we are taught by the Freemasons. We are taught by the Freemasons to worship those gods and to have our allegiance with them. Meanwhile, they worship Osiris and Isis, which seem to come from the Fourth Age, the Egyptian Fourth Age, and we have no knowledge about them, and probably very few Freemasons actually have knowledge about Isis and Osiris. This is why I'm reading to you about Isis and Osiris in some of my Back to the Book, so that we can learn more. All right. All right, so this is really a small decode of this preview But because Disney is so important, because so much of their stuff is coded, I think, and also I know from decoding many trailers and previews that these trailers and previews are heavily coded. They are like concentrated, so it's worth it to take some time and look at them. So I put this into the gematria counter, Disney Pixar, and it does have these numbers here. This is the 98 number of Lupercalia, but it also reduces to the 17, which is the Q form of pi, that they feel justifies the interruption of creation or destiny, or phi, according to, and I would say that phi would be the golden mean fractal underlying aspect of our nature that is the sign of our the true creator here. Also, we have a 99 here, which we saw a lot with the Pope visit. So it has, I believe it has to do, it's a double set number, and it's basically the ego. And then here, this is an 888 number. And then we have the elect number. So this equals the supreme key. Down here, again we have Prince William, Mark of the Beast, King Solomon, Yom Kippur. This is such an important number combination. Secret key, 44, that's the kill number. Sagittarius, which is the archer. This is spelled wrong. Scientology, Great Harvest, Hillary Rodham equals Great Harvest, and they both have these 7-Elevens in them. This is the convenience store. We don't eat there because you're agreeing to something. You're agreeing to toxification, basically. And she has. This is a misappropriation of the Great Pyramids. The Great Pyramids were built, I believe, by benevolent people of the fourth age of the sun, and they have a 7-11 ratio in them, which has to do with the evolution of man's consciousness. And I believe that these dark people of our times, they misappropriate sacred symbols. They misappropriate Isis. I believe she's a sacred symbol for the fourth age of the sun. I don't worship her. I just try to understand. I try to untangle the lies. But this 7-11 ratio has to do with the pyramids. It has, and I believe it has to do with the growing consciousness of man, which will free us. Consciousness will free us from this level of the school or this maze or whatever you want to call this. We will graduate, and we won't be harvested. We'll just graduate. So when they use this number for dark things like convenience stores or Hillary, you know, I'm like nobody for president. I used to believe in voting, and I don't anymore. Just thought you should know. Okay, that they use these symbols for darkness. They are just dirtying symbols just so that you will be very confused and you won't know where to look for something that's actually true. Yeah, apple in my eye is here, and Tutankhamun is here. Tutankhamun, I don't know if this is the right spelling of it, but it's very interesting. I have a whole book on him that I would like to bring to you, and some back to the books. There's an Ark of the Covenant type of furniture found in his belongings. There are a lot of things about Tutankhamun that they don't tell the public. Tutankhamun lived during the 14th century BC, which is the time the Dead Sea Scrolls places the teacher of righteousness. And the teacher of righteousness in the Dead Sea Scrolls, I'd like to bring that to you in a Back to the Books too. I have a lot of videos to make, basically. But the teacher of righteousness in the Dead Sea Scrolls had access to the Ark of the Covenant. He was killed in the Holy of Holies, and there are only 3 people allowed in the Holy of Holies. The top priest, which was, they call it in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the wicked priest. That's the one that killed. Joshua was the name mentioned in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But Joshua was the teacher of righteousness, and he said he would come again, and his followers believed him. And at the time, he taught a doctrine of, you don't need to be a royal, you don't need to be mummified to have eternal life. You basically already have eternal life. You are eternal. You will come again here. You will be, that's why Yahshua says, before you come to the Father, you will be born again, talking about reincarnation, because nobody's passed this test in one try. I think even Yahshua himself took 7 tries. That's probably the perfect number. Well, anyway, the only ones in the Holy of Holies was Joshua, the top priest, and Moses. And Moses, by many scholars, is believed to be Akhenaten. So I'm not saying I believe that, I'm just saying we need to take a look at all that. And we need to study what we know, what we can find out about Tutankhamun. So this has been a very important number. All right, well, I hope you guys, false Christian. I'm going to start talking about false Christians. I don't think enough people talk about false Christians. False Christians are going to be the people who are intentionally deceiving Christians, and it's going to also include Christians who parrot or mindlessly repeat the doctrine of false Christians, even though they might not intend to be false. If they are asking you to ask Jesus into your heart and to take an oath like that, or to just to participate in any oaths, they are also in this category. So we're going to talk more about that. All right, love you guys. I hope you're having a good day. Talk to you soon.